Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. We finally made it to March Madness. It's about time. And today is Thursday, March 18th. So we have reached the NCAA Tournament, even though today is just the first four. We are not getting all the games today. We're getting them tomorrow. Kevin Rogers and Thom Cunningham with you here on the Daily Insider. And we'll take a look at the first four games in the NCAA Tournament coming up tonight, including Michigan State and UCLA, the late game. That's kind of the premier game out of the four. But first, though, Tom, let's take a look at a few of the injuries that came up overnight that are going to affect some of these teams. First, let's start with Georgia Tech and their big weapon, Moses Wright, the ACC Player of the Year, 18 points a game. He is out for the Yellow Jackets against Loyola Chicago in the 8-9 game. That number is shot up to 5. What do you think with Georgia Tech as far as them, do you still have any faith in them even though they're getting 5, or you think that they're pretty much shot?
I think that they're shot for sure. A lot of people were high on Loyola Chicago going into this matchup, and I was a bit on the fence. I do think Georgia Tech was the better roster with Moses in. Now I'm not so sure. And I think you are more justified in taking the Ramblers for obvious reasons than you were before. So if you were on the fence about this game, I do think that there is even more conviction in taking Loyola Chicago. Obviously, a lot of people, they still think that the Ramblers could go on a deep run. I'm not going to say that just yet. I still like Georgia Tech. As you mentioned, Richmond played during the NIT, and they were missing, two top scorers, and they still won. So, Georgia Tech can still do it. But they are missing the conference's best player and their best player. So I think there's even more reason to take Loyola now if you were on the fence prior.
And even with Loyola Chicago, they're a team that, Missouri Valley champions, 24-4 record, that Georgia Tech, some people didn't even think much of anyway coming into the tournament, and now they're without their top player. So that's going to affect them. Looking up or moving up the bracket to the upper left here, Oklahoma and Missouri. Oklahoma down to 1. Davion Harmon, 13 points a game. He is out for the Sooners. COVID issue there. So how does your stance change with Oklahoma if it does? I liked Missouri before this news came out because I'm not trusting a team that's 0-7 against the spread their last 7 games, even though Mizzou is 2-7 against the spread their last 9. I'm not trusting Oklahoma here. How much does that affect the Sooners?
Well, it affects them pretty substantially, I would argue. But you still have Austin Reeves and you still have Brady Manick. And the issue, I really think that this matchup is going to come down to Manick versus Tillman in the paint. Obviously, this is a huge blow, Harmon being out. You have the Smiths on the perimeter along with Pinson for Missouri. So now Missouri just has more weapons in this game. But I still believe Austin Reeves might be the best player in this game on the court. And then you have Manick, the big man for Oklahoma, who does play well and can spread the floor and hit the 3 ball. So that's something Tillman can't do. He can't really play to the perimeter or even play a perimeter game on the offensive side. So I do think that this, for obvious reasons, it is a blow for Oklahoma. I'm not ready to write the Sooners off just yet, but this absolutely gives Missouri, without a doubt, a huge advantage. And they do have more playmakers looking at their roster as a whole.
From a standpoint of, I was thinking about this, Tom, that I looked at it, and we had never seen this before. I don't know if this is a factor or not, or I'm just making a big deal out of nothing, but all these games are being played in Indiana, in different parts of Indiana, not just Indianapolis. Are being played in West Lafayette, at Purdue, at Indiana, at IU and Bloomington, at IUPUI, at Butler. That all of these games, like for instance, Florida's playing Virginia Tech. All right, they play the winner of Ohio State Oral Roberts. Those are in 2 separate gymnasiums, 2 separate venues. Okay, so one of those teams, or the winner, is going to, I'm assuming Ohio State because they're the higher seed. The winner's going to stay in their venue, which I'm assuming, and the other winner is going to have to go to a new place. Granted, still in the state, but I figure like that's a little odd that you don't play in the same venue the first 2 rounds like you have in years past. So we're going to see that with a lot of these teams. It's not consistent with it in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, and that's not the only thing that's not consistent about this tournament. We have no idea if Virginia's going to have to forfeit a game. We don't know who Kansas is even sending out on the court in their first-round matchup. This is very difficult to decipher in terms of picking a bracket. And then, as you just mentioned, now we have another issue, which is the different venues. I do believe that if you're playing in West Lafayette or Bloomington, then you have to go to Indianapolis. There's obviously more of a disadvantage than if you're going from Hinkle Fieldhouse to Lucas Oil Stadium, because both of those venues are in Indianapolis. Now, the different venues could become a factor because, as we've seen most notably with the the Atlantis tournament in the Bahamas, they play in a ballroom, and you've had people like Bill Self come out and say the backdrop makes a difference when you're shooting. And I don't know if you've ever seen the ballroom in Atlantis when they play those preseason tournament games, but the ceiling is like almost on top of these people when they're playing a game. And so I do think that the venue is going to become a factor in terms of the backdrop, and it will affect teams. Who it affects and how it affects, we won't know until it actually happens. But again, I think the teams playing in West Lafayette and Bloomington are at more of a disadvantage if they have to all of a sudden travel to Indianapolis, a completely different city within the state. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah, because you're playing Friday and then you play Sunday. So if you're playing in West Lafayette and then the next game is at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, you still got to travel. Yeah. You're not in the same place. But I think Lucas Oil they're waiting on. You have the Pacers Arena too. Bankers. That's where some teams are playing. So there's about 5 different venues, and that's all fine. I meant more of these teams having to move in between the one game. It's one thing to go from the round of 64 and 32 playing in the same place, and then in the next round of the Sweet 16, a few days off, okay, you go wherever. But I don't know. I just saw that. I found that interesting as something to keep an eye on. Now, as far as other game, well, we'll get to these other games coming up this weekend in a minute. Let's start with the first four. All right. I want to go to Norfolk State and Appalachian State. We're going to start at the top. First game, Appalachian State, winners of the Sun Belt, 3.5-point favorite against Norfolk State. The MEAC has not had a lot of success in the tournament over the years. Hampton, right? That's the only winner. Hampton beat No. Hampton beat Iowa State, and Norfolk State beat Frank Haith, the Missouri, and I know Coppin State won. So you have a couple MEAC teams that have won, but Sunbelt versus MEAC, App State laying 3.5. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I do think that App State should win this game. They are the better team, in my opinion. What I think about this game, though, is the point total possibly going under, because what you have here is essentially 2 teams that go under. Norfolk State is interesting. They have been – the thing that separates Norfolk State from App State is Norfolk State has been the best team in their conference all year. App State hasn't been. They started off hot, and a lot of people were starting to eyeball them, and then they dropped back down to earth mid-season, and then they kind of just went on a run in the SoCon tournament. I do think App State obviously plays – Sunbelt, yes, I'm sorry. It's Sunbelt. They used to be in the SoCon.
Right.
And so I do think that App State is playing in the better conference, but Norfolk has been – consistently the best team in their conference. So you have to use a measuring stick on which you value more. The computers like App State. I personally like App State. I think they have roughly about a 61% chance to win this game. So I'm going to go with the Mountaineers. They should touch 70 points, but the point total worries me a bit. I think I would go under the point total for this one.
And the winner of that game will face Gonzaga. So you're facing the firing squad there in the next game. Then the other West game, Drake and Wichita State, a fantastic matchup. Winner gets USC coming up in the next round in that 6th spot. But Wichita State, and we had discussed this, Tom, that they were the top team, the top seed in the American tournament. Houston's the best team in the American, clearly. Yeah. But because of this season, not everyone played equal amount of games. Wichita State had a higher win percentage than Houston. Houston had, I believe, 3 losses in the AAC. Wichita State, East Carolina, and Tulsa. And Wichita State, I think, had 2 losses. So and Wichita State did split with Houston. But they were the top team in the American in the regular season, struggled against USF in the first round, and then lost to Cincinnati in the second round. Cincinnati, who got blown out by Houston in the next round. Drake had the great start in the Missouri Valley, had some injuries, and then Loyola Chicago ended up overtaking them. But Drake here out of the Missouri Valley laying 2 against Wichita State.
Yeah, this is going to be a tricky game, but the injuries for Drake is something you can go off of right now. They are missing their point guard, Penn. He's out for the season. Their leading scorer is questionable to play. He's been upgraded from doubtful to questionable. He had surgery in February, okay? So even if he comes back, we're not sure what player we're going to be getting out of Drake. So I do think Wichita State has the advantage. The computers like them. They got about a 58% chance to win this game and to possibly win by 3 to 4 points. So I think you take Wichita State to win. However, keep in mind, Drake is much better at covering the spread this year than Wichita State. Drake has covered the spread in 21 of 27 games this year. Okay, Wichita State has failed to cover the spread in 7 of 10 games. So the trends tell you to take Drake, but do keep in mind that there are injuries looming with the Bulldogs, and quite frankly, roster-wise, I do think Wichita State is slightly better and the better team, and Wichita State's going to have their top scorer in this game. So I think you take Wichita State, especially if they're the underdog.
And also with Wichita State, that you're getting them as a short dog here, which you haven't seen that often this year because they've been favored in a lot of those games. So that's kind of curious. In the East, the first four games, Mount St. Mary's and Texas Southern, that's the 16-16. Mount St. Mary's out of the Northeast, and Texas Southern out of the SWAC. And Texas Southern, they've always been a program, Tom, that has played, at least when Mike Davis was the head coach there, they always schedule really, really, really tough games out of conference. You may go 0-9 out of conference, but you're playing the big boys the whole time. So they're never really bulking up, and they're getting ready for SWAC play. And Mount St. Mary's 12-10. But Mount St. Mary's, though, is short favorite here in spite of Texas Southern having the better record.
Yeah, I think Texas Southern is the better team in general. What Texas Southern did against Prairie View A&M was actually quite impressive. Prairie View A&M had really no excuse to not be in this tournament this year. And Texas Southern took it to them in a place that Prairie View A&M typically wins at, too. They're very difficult to beat at home. I like Texas Southern here. The computers like them. The computers are giving them about a 57% chance to win, despite having a money line of plus 105. They expect Texas Southern to win by 3 to 4 points. I think that's fair to take. I'm going to go Texas Southern as well. This program is used to this. They're used to losing a bunch of games, as you just mentioned. Then they're used to playing well within the conference, and then they're used to a 16-seeded matchup. So this is nothing new for them. Mount St. Mary's at 12-10. That's not an accident. They kind of just got hot in a weak conference that Wagner and/or Bryant really should have won in the NEC. And so I really just don't have the conviction in Mount St. Mary's to take them, especially if they're the favorites. So give me Texas Southern. The 16-8 Tigers, I think, should cover the spread and get the job done.
And the final game inside the first four tonight, the late game, Michigan State, UCLA. And
big one.
Look, two programs with rich traditions. This is the main game. They wanted to have these two teams play. You're going to get a lot of eyeballs on this game, nearly a 10 o'clock tip-off on the East Coast. And Michigan State is laying 2. UCLA, I want to go over to their team pages here because first off with Michigan State, obviously Tom Izzo, he gets a lot of run because of what he's done in Michigan State. This has just been a down year for the Spartans. But look at the end and what Michigan State did. All right, well, first of all, a ton of unders. But secondly, Michigan State beat Illinois, Ohio State, and Michigan all at the end of the season to get in, all as a home underdog. All right, so 2 number 1 seeds and number 2 seed Michigan State beat, but all at home. They were not a good favorite this year. And now they're laying 2 points against UCLA. And looking at UCLA, they were very streaky. 4 straight wins here from February 13th against Washington to February 25th against Utah. Granted, none of those teams are going to the tournament. Arizona could have been a tournament team if they were eligible, but they're not. Look at their final 4 losses. Colorado, Oregon, USC, top 3 teams in the Pac-12. Oregon State, who went on that crazy run.
The hottest team in the
right.
Pac-12.
So, Tom, this matchup, Michigan State laying 2, UCLA, I feel like, is a little bit undervalued in this game, and people are remembering what Michigan State just did, and they basically have one good win away from East Lansing, and that was at Indiana, who's a complete disaster.
The thing to keep in mind with this game is neither school is good at covering. They're both very, very woeful against the spread this year. Then you go to the point total market, UCLA goes over a lot. Michigan State goes under a lot. If you're looking at the 2 rosters side by side, UCLA blows Michigan State out of the water. It's not even close. UCLA is the better talented roster. I've been trying to figure out what Jalen Hill's status is for this game. He's not listed on the injury report. UCLA is keeping it very quiet. Jalen Hill's status for this game is very important because if he does not play, UCLA is basically left with one big man in Cody Riley. If he gets in foul trouble, that's it. UCLA really has nobody else. They have to rely on Tiger Campbell, Yami Jacquez, and Johnny Juzang to get all the rebounds and points. And Jules Bernard, keep in mind, don't want to forget Jules Bernard, very good defender. I just think UCLA is the better team in terms of talent. Whether Jalen Hill plays or not, I still like UCLA. But if Jalen Hill is playing, I have no conviction in taking the Spartans in this one, despite the fact that you have Tom Izzo, you have the blue blood, the history of Michigan State basketball, how well they do in this tournament. But they haven't been good. Again, this is the worst efficiency ratio team in the entire tournament. They're the only team in this tournament that has an offense and a defense efficiency rating under 200 in the nation. So I really do think that UCLA should be fine here. Keep Jalen Hill on your radar, though. His status is absolutely crucial to tonight's game.
And as you see here in the preview on VegasInsider.com that Tom was just alluding to, right here in this middle, this is Michigan State's profile. Offensive rating 217th, defensive rating 226th, points per game 237th. So this is a team that's just had a lot of issues with scoring, with efficiency. UCLA, as you mentioned, not great either, 211th on the defensive rating. But as far as what else do you want to look at here?
As you scroll down, let's go up a little. Right there, perfect. Yeah. Boom. Joey Hauser's got to step up. That's the name that has to play well for Michigan State. Now, Aaron Henry's going to bring it. Look what he averages. I mean, that's phenomenal. And then Joshua Langford is going to be inspirational on the court, as he has been. You have Rocket Watts, who has really stepped up very well lately for Michigan State, despite them losing to Maryland. Tom Izzo basically called Rocket Watts out, and Watts got the message, and he is now on full alert. So Watts got the gut check he needed. He's starting to play well, but Joey Hauser, look at that, 9.9 and 5.9 rebounds per game. Those stats have actually trickled down. And if you are watching Michigan State play, Joey Hauser is struggling tremendously on offense. All they need is a shot in the arm from him on the offensive side to be able to compete and win a couple games. So Joey Hauser, to me, is the name that you have to watch if you're a Michigan State fan in this one. UCLA, Jalen Hill.
So with Michigan State and UCLA, okay, where do you want me to go now? Just tell me where.
You want to go.
Okay, so Michigan State and UCLA, as you see here, I mean, Michigan State favored, and obviously these teams have long odds to get to the national championship. But, look, Michigan State, again, they're a team that played very well at times. They played with desperation at the end of the season to get in the tournament, where UCLA, I feel like, built it up. But my issue with UCLA is, even though I do like them tonight, that they beat two teams that are in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. One of them is Colorado early in the season. The other is Oregon State, who had to run the table in the Pac-12 tournament to get in the big dance. UCLA lost to USC twice. They didn't beat Oregon this year. That's what concerns me. I know they had injury issues. And then you talk about, the head coaching, Tom Izzo versus Mick Cronin. So I feel like both teams have more negatives than positives.
Yeah, and I mean, how many times have we seen Mick Cronin teams leave a tournament early? A lot. How many times have we seen Cincinnati as a 3 seed, a 4 seed, a 5 seed, a 6 seed, and they don't make it past the second round? Quite often. And so, if you're skeptical about UCLA, I understand why, for the reasons you just mentioned. Of the two coaches, you probably want to lean Izzo a little bit more than Mick Cronin. Both very respectable coaches, though. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a fun game. I just think UCLA has too much depth. I think they're the better talented roster. Neither team covers the spread well, particularly. So it's going to be an interesting game for sure. One of the more difficult games to bet on. But I think that if you level it down, you take away all the noise, Izzo, Michigan State, they did this, they did that. If you look at just the rosters here, and you look at the situation entering the game, UCLA should win this game. They should have the edge. Odds makers like Michigan State, but the computers like UCLA by a point. That should tell you how close this game is going to be. It should be fun. It's definitely going to be the Kickstarter to this March Madness.
For tomorrow, anything else? And I asked this yesterday, but now that you've gotten more information and going over all the stuff, anything for tomorrow that has changed your mind, or a game that you say, okay, I was on the fence about this, but this pushed me over the edge to take this team? Is there one or two games that you feel like your mind changed a little bit after accumulating a little bit more information?
Well, obviously the Georgia Tech game, that's huge. I had Georgia Tech winning. I thought they were the better team, the better talented roster overall. They lose their best player. They lose the conference's best player. Loyola Chicago should win this game now. And then I thought it was interesting that the computers they absolutely love two teams to make a run in this tournament: Tennessee and Villanova. And that shocks me because Villanova is obviously dealing with the Colin Gillespie injury. They're not as strong as they have been. They've dropped, 3 or 4 games. They lost to Butler. They let Providence, get off the hook there. Only scoring 52 points in that game, which is something you rarely see Villanova score under 60 points or 55 points a game. That's very rare, and it happened against Providence. They lost. I'm shocked that computers are giving Villanova about a 55% chance to make the Sweet 16. Blows my mind. Tennessee also, mainly because they have to face a pretty hot and tough Oregon State team in round 1. Then if they get by the Beavers, they potentially have the Cowboys in Oklahoma State and Cade Cunningham in round 2. I am very surprised how much the computers love Villanova and they love Tennessee. So with that in mind, keep your eye on those two teams as possible surprises to make a run in this tournament. The other team is West Virginia. They are, as a 3 seed, you would think they're not underseeded. That is somewhat underseeded for how good West Virginia actually is. There's Miles McBride, Derek Culver. You got one of the best coaches in Bob Huggins. You got Taz Sherman. This team has weapons all around them. And so the computers like West Virginia. I have to agree with that. The two that surprised me, however, is Villanova and Tennessee.
I do like West Virginia to make the Final Four. And I said they're either going to lose to Morehead State or make the Final Four, one of the two. But when you look at the one matchup that is a little perplexing is that Tennessee-Oregon State. Because, number one, all of the ATS numbers have gone against Tennessee, and they've gone for Oregon State. And the difference between, and I'm going to pull another team in here, the difference between Oregon State and Georgetown, okay, because they are similar, both 12 seeds, both teams that should not be in the tournament, they are only in because they won their conference tournaments, you get the automatic bid. But Oregon State's ATS numbers were pretty good before the Pac-12, where Georgetown had a couple covers here and there, and it wasn't really overwhelming, where Oregon State was playing well towards the end, and then if they're a factor in the Pac-12 tournament, so be it. They end up winning the whole thing. But Tennessee started the season very well. They won at Missouri out of the gate, and then just really weren't impressive down the stretch. So I say, how do I have faith in laying the points with Tennessee when Oregon State is playing better basketball? You're getting the points with them, and again, the Volunteers, I've shown a faith in them to lay that kind of price.
Well, I think Oregon State has more of an identity. Like Oregon State knows who they are, the game plan every single week. It's not going to change. They show up, they play their style. I think that's why it works. Georgetown, you're kind of getting an inconsistency out of them. Now, granted, recently, and especially in the Big East tournament, they've found an identity. It may have just taken them a while to find it, but Oregon State has stayed the course all year, and it has gotten them here. Whereas Georgetown, they're kind of playing on a bit of a high drama story as well with the whole Madison Square Garden thing. It's just there seems to be more conviction in Oregon State's identity than what Georgetown, like what style is Georgetown coming out and playing with. So I do like Oregon State more so than Georgetown. Tennessee needs to keep in mind, though, that they have to find offense outside of Jaden Springer, or they're going to be out. You've got a ton of great guys. You got Vescovi, you got Pons, you got Victor Bailey. So yeah, I really think that Tennessee, they're going to be on an upset alert here. Not saying that they will lose, but you got playmakers like Tennessee. They should win. And in terms of the spread, which you alluded to earlier, Oregon State, I like them to cover. So Oregon State to cover, but Tennessee to win. If you're feeling, risky, that to me would be a good double bet to make on this game. I just think Tennessee has too much talent to lose this game to Oregon State, despite the fact that Oregon State is the hotter team. And then going to the other game, you mentioned Georgetown and Colorado real quickly. Colorado's senior experience, they don't lose back-to-backs often. They're coming off a loss. Colorado has an identity. They know who they are. They come out on the court and they implement it every single game. I think that, quite frankly, these 12 seeds, you're kind of reaching for an upset here. Now, I know I've come on the show and I've spoken highly of Oregon State, but when push comes to shove, the better team should win, and Tennessee and Colorado are the better teams, despite how hot Georgetown and Oregon State are. And between Georgetown and Oregon State, I think Oregon State plays with more conviction in who they are, which is why I like them a little bit more than Georgetown. So, yeah, that's what I like there.
So tomorrow we will break down more of the Friday card and look ahead to Saturday as well, and obviously look back at Thursday and what happened tonight. Really quick, we're going to take a look at the consensus picks for tonight inside of college basketball from our handicappers and what the number is right now with our handicappers. And I wrote it down here, so let me pull that up. Okay. Our consensus for our handicappers, Drake, 10-3. All right, so if you want to go to our college basketball page and you want to find picks for tonight, you could buy our picks, $29.95 for the expert picks for Thursday night. And the man that's on fire right now, you see down at the bottom of the screen above the scroll, is Joe Williams. 15 straight guaranteed winners. He has a guaranteed winner tonight in college basketball. It's $39.95. You can buy it now or before tip-off. And we're not going to show you his winner, but we're going to show you the game he has, so we can tell you what at least he has. Wichita State and Drake. So that is the game he has, Wichita State and Drake. So check that out for purchase, $39.95 tonight. And you have all these guarantees here, and in college basketball, $29.95. Also, Matt Fargo is on a 10-0 college basketball run. He's doing great. So Fargo, Joe Williams, both of them on fire. You can check out their picks. Go to the college basketball buy picks page, and you can find those winners there. 10-3 for Drake on the consensus, and Norfolk State 4-0.
Yeah.
So those are the two consensus selections among our handicappers tonight, and you could find out who has what and find those on our buy picks page on our college basketball picks on vegasinsider.com. And don't forget to find all of the previews for tonight, and also we have an NBA preview, Hornets-Lakers, for the late night crowd. And also you could check out on this link here on the homepage, Consensus Tourney picks, the Juwan Howard picture, and you could find our final four picks for all of our handicappers and what they like in
Gonzaga.
You know what? Everyone likes Gonzaga. I'm still riding the Alabama train, going to.
This would be the sporting event to go away from chalk. Yeah, I come out here all the time, and people always ask, they say, who are you picking? Well, it really depends. If you're filling out an office pool, you want to pick a team like Alabama, like you have, because what you're doing is you're picking a team that's different than everyone else is picking. All those handicappers that pick Gonzaga, if Gonzaga's in the championship game, who's going to win? Right. You know what I mean? So I think Alabama's a good pick. Yeah, they're different. No one's picking them, although they have a great chance to get in. I think you got to look for those sorts of teams. So I would totally buy that. Absolutely.
I just think that Alabama, their region is not terribly difficult, and Michigan with Livers out, I don't really know how much faith I have in them to go far. So I just think Alabama's been consistent pretty much all season long. So that's a look at. So you can basically get all of your college basketball March Madness breakdown there. You can find it on the College Basketball Arena at vegasinsider.com and find it on the homepage as well. And we'll be back tomorrow for the Daily Insider once again to, just break all this down again. And the NCAA Tournament will begin, finally. I know tonight's the first four, but tomorrow, wall-to-wall basketball starting at noon. So that's what you get. You get primetime basketball tonight, and then wall-to-wall basketball from noon all the way through the night, Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday and Monday in the round of 32. He is Thom Cunningham. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching the latest edition of the Daily Insider right here on vegasinsider.com.